These days, for SHR's Cup Series drivers, race week begins not at the racetrack, but at the Ford Performance Simulator in North Carolina.
The simulator is extremely important. It's arguably the most important tool we have because it's the only thing we have to allow us to go and test and change setups and change things on the race car prior to going to that event. In years past, we could go to the racetrack and we could completely overhaul the setup on the race car after a practice. We can't do that anymore. We show up to the racetrack and we can change minimal things on the race car before qualifying. And once we qualify, the setup is locked into the car for the race. So we have to rely on that simulator heavily to guide us and lead us in the direction that we're going to go with the setup of our race car.
We use the driver simulator for a ton of things. Since there's not much on-track testing anymore, we use it on gear ratio stuff. We use it on brakes. We change brake pads. Does he like that? Does he not like that? And all that stuff is modeled for us, so we can plug it into the simulator and get as close as we can to a real life experience with it before we show up. All of those things are so realistic that it really translates to Friday, Saturday, Sunday at the real racetrack.
The simulator can't replicate everything, certainly not the reality of a crowded track of 40 unpredictable cars, but if the data is good, then this virtual world tool is very effective.
Simulator time helps everybody. We all know that it's called simulation for a reason. It's not perfect, but you try and make it as close to real world as you can. And one of the things that my group does is through feedback from the drivers and data that we collect from tests and those type of things is try and make that more realistic to the track. So anytime we get in there, we're trying different things to make it better, improve the processes in order to help our teams be better suited to go to the racetrack.
Your lockup was minimal there. It actually looked better in the first run.
I felt like I did lock up the tire a little bit more aggressively one time, but that was because I used a little bit more brake pressure.
You are good to go.
The simulator is based on modeling, so if we are off just the slightest, you get to the real racetrack and you're like, it doesn't drive like the simulator at all. And those usually come down to two things, tire modeling and aero modeling. Two things that we work extremely hard to get as accurate as possible, but anything off on aero or on the tire model completely kind of throws out a lot of the stuff you're doing there in the driver simulator. So we've made a huge effort, so as soon as the race is over on Sunday, we get in the simulator as soon as possible with one of our guys with his race setup so he can drive it and say, it drives just like that, or this is what's different. And then we work on how to make it the same, and then we feel that aero and tire is closer to real life.
Ford Performance have invested heavily in their simulator, and it's busy all day, every day, with multiple teams desperate for time. It's a long way from a home racing rig, but their NASCAR is a serious business.
The simulator that we go to is multi-million-dollar simulator. It's actually a cockpit, it's Aric's seat in the car, it's Aric's pedals, it's our dash, everything so it looks like he's in our race car when he's sitting in there. His steering wheel placement, and it's on actuators. So when he goes into the corner, he can feel the car, he can feel G-forces, you can feel the car rattling around, and when you're there watching, you can see the cockpit he's sitting in bounce aggressively and hear the noise it makes when it goes over the bumps going down the backstretch or in the middle of the corner. So it's a much more realistic, and there's quite a few zeros at the end of the price tag for this one versus the one you can have at your home.
The simulator is as close to reality as you can possibly get. It's not real world, but it is state of the art, and the engineering and technology behind the simulator continues to get better and evolve, and we're in the process of developing a brand new simulator right now with Ford. But there's nothing like real life, right? And a part of it is, even if you made it exactly like real life, the driver inside the car in the simulator is always going to do things that he wouldn't necessarily do in real life because there's no consequences. You can hit restart. You can crash and it doesn't hurt. Even when you get it as perfect as you can possibly get it, it still comes down to how you apply it.